Hi, Avish. How are you? Great, man. It's good to have our usual Instagram chat. And yeah, man, let's quickly get to your quick thoughts on West Indies 2-0 series win against Bangladesh.
I actually thought it was a great achievement. Uh, I'll tell you why. I mean, if you look at the side that the Windies took to Bangladesh, there were quite a few first team players that weren't there. It was quite. It was quite a. You would call it a B side. You would call it a B side. What
Mm,
they achieved there was fantastic because the Windies haven't been, in the good end of results for a very long time, and for them to win
mm.
a Test series in I mean, that's a huge effort, and I mean, we all know that heroics in the first test when they chased down 395, which I thought was sensational, and that innings from Mayers was just incredible to watch. Like I said, so many players were missing from this Windies lineup, the likes of Holder, Roach, Bravo wasn't there, and I think the wicketkeeper Dowrish as well, the first choice wicketkeeper, he was missing. So yeah, I mean, a lot of experience was missing, and there were so many debutants in this team, and yeah, what they achieved was amazing. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of Windies fans back home wouldn't have given this team much of a chance
Mm.
in Bangladesh, and we know Bangladesh are quite a feisty outfit at home. They
Mm.
they they decent.
That's true.
Uh, Very difficult on those turning tracks in Bangladesh, and I think the way
Mm.
you got to admire the way that they came out in these two tests. 395, especially in that first test. I mean, a lot of teams would be just playing for survival.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah, throwing in the
but
towel.
the thing is, with survival, there's always going to be one ball that's going to get you. There's
Mm.
one. There's one ball with your name on it. So
Yes.
they just went and played their national game, and wow, what an amazing chase that was in the first test. And then the second test, the bowlers came to the party because I don't think they would have been too happy with the posting. What was it? Just on the 220 for Bangladesh to chase. Apologies, I think they got bowled out for 127 in that second innings. So they
Yeah.
would have been a bit disappointed. I mean, the way they both came up
Yeah,
was
117 in
amazing.
the second innings. Yeah, they had to chase like 230
117.
something, I think.
There
They
you
had
go.
to,
117.
yeah,
230 to
they had to chase
chase.
230. Yeah. And they were short by 17 runs, Bangladesh. So I
I'm
think,
pretty sure Bangladesh would have been quite disappointed not getting over the
yeah,
line because I mean
because
they
I
would have
think
fancied their
for
chances.
them, yeah, I think for them it was like a series of lost opportunities. First, the first test match was DRS, definitely. Then the second test match was really not applying themselves. So I feel they got themselves to blame, but I'm happy to see West Indies win because it's good for cricket and hopefully they can go on and surprise other teams in the future. So I know the next segment is what you've been waiting for. So let's talk about Faf du Plessis. He retired. It was a bit of a shock when you told me this morning on WhatsApp, but I guess it made sense because as you've told me many times on WhatsApp, that his best days are behind him. So he probably did the right thing.
Yeah, man, I don't know what to say. It's quite a bittersweet moment at this moment. Look, when you look at Faf as a character, you come across someone that's steely, uh, someone that's a fighter that's willing to fight for his team on the pitch, and that just epitomized the debut innings that he played against Australia. 110 on debut in your first test,
Mm.
saving test match, and that just showed the character of him. That those fighting qualities. But when I look at Faf and how I remember Faf, I think his greatest strength was actually his leadership. he was a natural born leader. Uh, if you look at the time that he took over the captaincy, it wasn't an easy time in SA cricket. Uh,
Yeah.
there was, you know, there were transformation issues that were taking place, and AB also took a break, you know, from Test cricket. So there was a lot of pressure on this guy, and the way he captained the side was sensational. I just look at this takes me back to the series in Australia in 2016, when in the first test they played at Perth, you know, and this shows the innovation that he had as a captain. He picked Avish Maharaj to play that first test at Perth, of all venues. I mean, you pick a finger spinner. You give a finger spinner a debut at a venue that's renowned for fast bowlers, and it is a fast bowler's paradise, Perth Stadium. And Keshav managed to take 5 wickets in that test match and actually played a vital role in winning that game. And there was another instance in that series when I think it was the third test in Adelaide. He declared quite early because he wanted to have a crack at the Aussies just before the close of play with that pink ball. So that was sort of innovation that he had, you know, declaring quite prematurely, 259, and then just put the Aussies in to have a crack at them. So he was a player. He was a sort of leader that wanted to let the game, you know, go forward. He didn't want things to. He actually made things happen. So, you know, they've had some great leaders in terms of the Proteas. If you look at Smith, if you look at Hansi, but I think, to be honest with you, I think with regards to Graham Smith, Smith actually had those players to actually get those results. With regards to Faf, I would say he was probably a greater leader because there was so many new players to that side, and he still managed to grind out those results, and quite consistently as well, which was so amazing to see from him. And you know, you're talking about his knocks. I think there's one knock that doesn't really, you know, get much you know, fanfare. But I think this was probably one of his best knocks, if not his best knocks. I think in the year after his debut at the Wanderers, he scored 134 against India at the Bull Ring. And I remember that game quite vividly, and I watched every ball of that innings. Luckily, you know, SA were chasing 456 heading into day 5, and they were in dire straits. And then Faf came in with AB, and he scored 134, as good a 100 that you'll ever see. And SA lost that game SA fell short by 6 runs, ended up drawing the game. So it was such an amazing innings in the context of the match. And I almost felt really bad at the end there because I really thought SA deserved that game because the way they played and the way they dug themselves out of that hole and get to such a position of strength. I thought it was amazing, and it was just befitting of a player like Faf that, you know, in those early years, him coming into the team. Look, there's going to be a lot of comparisons between him and AB, but it's always been the case where he's always fallen in the shadow of AB. I mean, they both grew up together. They went to the same school. They played for the same franchise. And Faf, obviously, AB made his debut quite early, at quite an early age. And then Faf came in as a 28-year-old, you know, 28, 29-year-old. And, you know, he pretty much knew what his role was in the team. You know, he pretty much belonged there as a player, which goes to show that stint that he had in county cricket really proved its worth. And he already seemed like an experienced player even on his debut. I mean, to bat 4 sessions and save a test match on your debut, is just crazy. I mean, that takes so much of skill, and to do it against the Aussies, which I think, in a way, he left his best performances for the Aussies. Yeah, I'll let you speak more about him.
Yeah, I was actually looking at one of the comments here from this guy here. He was saying Australia finally in peace. Faf, a legend, true leader. I don't think I need to substantiate from that. I think he's pretty much wrapped it up. Like some more comment there. I don't know if you noticed that comment there.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, as I was saying, there was something about playing Australia that really fired up Faf, because I also remember that 5-0 drubbing that he inflicted on the Aussies in that ODI series, and that was Faf's captaincy there and then. He was amazing the way he rotated his bowlers, and he was sort of a player. He was sort of a captain. I think if you compare him to a guy like Fleming, that didn't really have all the resources, but got the best out of his players. There's another thing I want to say about Faf when we're talking about a batsman, and when he came into the side, there were a lot of players that were actually nearing their retirements and stuff. But I think the way he he went about that juggernaut and just held that juggernaut together, the batting lineup, because Smith had retired, Jock had retired, and he just helped AB get through that period of transition in the team, and at that time it was just Amla and AB that were the experienced players, and I think, I mean, if you look at his batting stats, 4,000 plus test runs at an average of 40, 10 centuries, 26 half centuries. In my book, I think he was a much more talented player than those stats would suggest. But I know, just bear in mind the situation that he was put under as a player and as a captain. That doesn't really tell a whole story. And he just rose to the occasion. I just want to bring something up again. This guy, as a leader, I mean, we all know how good he was as a leader on the pitch, but in press conferences, he was actually quite amazing as well with the press. And it takes me back to 2019 World Cup. And SA had a very, very difficult World Cup. That whole AB saga of him winning. AB was going to play or not going to play, and they just the entire team. I think Amla also had issues. His dad wasn't well, and that affected him as well. And I felt sorry for him in that tournament, because after every loss he was getting flack from the media, and he took it with such stride. It was amazing to watch, and I think that last game, that final game in that tournament when he scored at century against the Aussies, I think just proved a point to a lot of doubters about him as a player as well. That he still had a lot more to offer the country, and some would say it was probably a year too late that he announced his retirement. But I think this is just a testament to the man, because even after him relinquishing his captaincy, stepping down, he still wanted to offer the Proteas himself, as a batsman, as a player, in the side. And I thought that was testament of him as a player. It was such an amazing deed that he actually carried out there. And let's be conscious. He hasn't had the easiest of times recently, and I think this was probably the right decision to make at the right time. It was good that he obviously honored that tour of Pakistan, because if you recall, he was the only player. He was the player that captained that World 11 to Pakistan after all those years. So I think as a social he made a real statement on the social side of it as well. And there's so much more that we can talk about him. As even
Yeah.
a guy like Rabada, he was such a young player and came into this team, and Faf just welcomed him into the team, and he said, you know what, I'm going to protect you, and all you got to do is just go and do your thing. I will protect you. I will guide you. And I think as I say, that series against Australia in 2016, I think I remember that scene vividly when Rabada took a wicket, and then Faf went to him, and he hugged him, and he kissed him on his forehead. And
Forehead. Yeah.
yeah, I mean look, this is a guy. This was a guy from the north, an Afrikaans man, played for the Titans, and and then there you got KG from Joburg, a black guy, and I thought that was just a wonderful moment. It just goes to show, I mean, what we're capable of as a country. And even during the lockdown, he partnered up with Sia Kolisi, the Springbok captain, and he were donating. They were going about donating food parcels and clothing to those that were in need, and also the BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. He was one of the first white cricketers to actually show his support for the movement with all the other black cricketers in the setup. So it just goes to show the social responsibility that he showed as a player. It goes far beyond him as a cricketer. So I think these are the things that defines a person, not just a player that actually goes out and earns a salary. There's so much more that you can be as a sportsman, and Faf showed that to us.
Yeah, I was just thinking now, and I don't know if it would have worked out for South Africa, but if Faf had maybe spoken to them in advance about his retirement, maybe they might have played a lot better. The Test series is like doing like a farewell for him, But then that's all like ifs and buts, That would have been fun though, because normally I've noticed that whenever we have retirements happening, we seem to play well for people. Like I remember for the Callis retirement, and I think for the retirement, I think for many people retirement, we did. So maybe he should have probably just given a heads up, Maybe we would have played a lot better, but that's a story for another time, man.
Honestly speaking, I think the perfect finale for Faf would have probably been a home series, and his final test being at Centurion at Supersport Park, which is his home ground. That would have been a fitting farewell to Faf with spectators around. But unfortunately, unfortunately, in these times that we're living in, it's a bit difficult, to have those sort of, and I think he actually deserves it as a player, what he's put through, and let's be honest, these last 5 years have not been easy for the team, and from a leadership point of view. So he's really, he's done an admirable job leading the team, and in terms of the batting as well, there's so many knocks that you can obviously go back and speak about. But I think with regards to Faf, he was not the most talented, not the most skilled, but he showed a lot of fight. He showed a lot of heart, and he always scored tough runs for SA. Always scored those tough centuries. So I think people have got to appreciate that. I mean, you really can't compare him in the same bracket as a De Villiers, as an AB, but Faf's a different sort of. Faf's a different sort of character. Yeah. I mean, AB's not a natural leader, AB's an amazing player. He's a sensational batsman, but he's not a natural leader, and that's what Faf is. Faf's a true leader, and he's a natural born leader. Absolutely natural. I mean, if he could captain a World 11, I mean, he can practically captain any team in any format,
Yeah, I think maybe Faf in Heinz. I think Faf wanted to probably have his farewell against Australia because he's done really well against them in the past. And I think if South Africa beaten Australia, right, then I think that would have been his best way of retiring. But then we all know what happened with CA, Cricket Australia, calling of the tour, and then that's pretty much that story. I know they've put a complaint against Cricket Australia, but we'll obviously talk about that in our probably next chat.
I mean, just getting back to the Australia thing, I think that would have been a wonderful series for Faf. It'd been a fitting series because he always gave out his against the Aussies. As I said, the biggest performances you can think about was always against the Aussies. I mean, even if you're talking about the one-day format and those innings that he played. So, I mean, look, he's not completely lost to SA cricket. He's still in the limited overs setup, and I think he's got a vital role to play there. Because, I mean, he's, by the look of things, I don't think Faf is done at all. I mean, his body is still, I mean, his body is still good, still fit. I mean, I don't think he's one that's going to throw in the towel anytime soon. So, if he can play that well in the white ball format, I think he can be the first one on that.
Focuses on the one-day stuff, which makes sense for him. I think he is kind of getting to that stage where he should rather focus on the ODI stuff and make some good money on the side.
Absolutely, and I think in a way that this retirement would actually help him in a way, because that would open himself up a bit now. There's no sort of baggage that he's going to carry, because I think for a very long time he was carrying a lot of baggage. There was a lot of responsibility on his shoulders, and I think the best of players, I mean, you talk about those greats that really couldn't handle captaincy, the likes of Tendulkar, the likes of Lara, there's so many players that you can speak about. And I always say it's not always players.
Yeah.
It's not always the best players that make the best captains. It's not the case.
Of course.
It's a natural instinct that you have. And I think that makes a great captain, and Faf had that in abundance. So we wish him all the best. But hopefully, he can be a force now in the limited overs format and take the Proteas quite much further into the future. And if he performs well in the white ball series, I think he should be the first one on the team sheet to go to the World Cup, definitely. So, I mean, he's conditions of India, and he's played there for so many years with CSK, so it would be invaluable to have him in that side. And, who's writing off 2023 World Cup as well? I mean, there's a lot of players. I mean, if you look at MS Dhoni, I mean, he played in the 2019 World Cup, and he was about 38. So, it's not impossible. It is not impossible at all. It just depends on your fitness and how your body feels at that time. So I wouldn't write off Faf going to that World Cup as well in 2023. Yeah.
Speaking about limited overs now, we have lost the series to Pakistan 2-1. What were your thoughts, like in a nutshell? Because I felt it's another series where I felt there were like lost opportunities for us. I mean, we could have probably drawn the fifth series, and now we could have possibly maybe won this series 2-1, because I think Pamela let us down in this third match. And fine, in hindsight, we probably didn't deserve to win because they were really down in the dumps and Miller saved us. But considering Miller did so much of great work, it would have been a reward,
Look, even though it was a series loss, there's a lot of positives to actually take out from, I think the main thing was to actually, get more youngsters into the side and give them that exposure. But I think in a way, if you look at Miller's innings in that last test match, the last T20, that papered over some of those cracks, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
and especially in that batting display in that last T20 which was very ordinary from the Proteas. It seems like Miller was batting on a different wicket compared to everybody else. Everybody else was absolutely clueless on how to go about constructing an innings. And I fancied SA for that final T20, because they had a lot of confidence after winning the second one. Look, that that was obviously a good uh, win for them, chasing. They restricted Pakistan to 144, which I thought was phenomenal. And Pretorius, showed his quality with the ball in that game. 5 for 17, which is amazing in a T20 to take 5 wickets. I mean, guys can't even do that in Test matches. I mean, to do it in T20, that takes some sort of that's some feat. It takes a lot of control and a lot of discipline to do that. And I thought it was sensational from him. But yet again, those batting collapses in the middle order cost us that game in the third one. I would have preferred probably not playing Smuts and probably giving another batter a chance at probably like a Ryan Rickleton, because I think he was doing phenomenal for the Lions, and I thought a player like him deserved a chance in this tour, and it was so invaluable. I mean, to actually go to the subcontinent and get used to those conditions as a young player, it's an invaluable experience, and I thought that was lost in some way. They could have blooded more youngsters. But having said that, bowling second time, there were some challenges there with the dew, because the dew got quite bad in that second innings. There were times the ball wasn't gripping. It was getting wet, and I think Petluquayo at the end there, he probably wouldn't want to see some of those deliveries again, because if anything, those balls were slipping out of his hands, and they were just flying out of the boundary. But I think the Proteas were probably about 20 runs short there in that last game. 184 would have been probably a winning score on that wicket. But another positive for me was Shamsi. He's really turning into a real quality bowler in this format. A world-class bowler, in my view. I think Tahir was probably has a lot to do with it. Probably worked with him quite a bit on his action, and he seems to have a lot more control now. And he's taking wickets, so he can play that. He can dry up runs, and he can also take wickets, which is such an amazing asset to have in the side. So question marks on the terms of the batting, as I said, but I think we pretty much know who's going to the World Cup. There's about two or three places probably up for grabs. That's all about who wants it more. We'll see in the next couple of weeks as to who actually, who's really putting their hand up for that spots. But I think we pretty much know who's actually going to go to the World Cup. From sense, it was all about trying to find new options out there. And look, it is disappointing to lose. I mean, a win would have probably given the side a lot of confidence going forward. But it just goes to show that there is quite a bit of depth as well in terms of the setup if the senior players are not there as well.
Okay, I think that gets us into the last portion, which is the India and England for the second Test match. It was a great comeback by India, and they won by 317 runs. And what were your thoughts in general?
This was a crushing win for India. Completely outplayed England in all departments. I think it all started at the toss. It's one thing winning the toss and then putting runs on the board. That score that India posted in that first innings, 329, was like 500, to be honest with you, on that wicket, because that wicket got more and more difficult to play, and England just had no answers to that spin trio of India. They just really were found wanting with their footwork. I don't know what's going on with this England side. I mean, they won the first Test quite convincingly, and then they went on this rotation policy of rotating players. But I mean, if I had to ask you this question, why would you change a winning side? Why would you change a winning team?
Yeah,
There were so
yeah,
many experienced players that did not play in this game. Okay,
yeah,
Jimmy Anderson was sensational in that first test. Uh, I can only wonder how effective he would have been on this wicket, because if Moeen Ali was turning the ball from day one in the first session, it just goes to show what a challenge it was to bat on this wicket on this pitch. And India are a formidable side in these conditions. I mean, they just
yeah,
showed their skill with the bat and with the ball, and England had absolutely no answers. They were really caught. They were simply rabbit in the headlights, if I may say. They really shot themselves in the foot badly in this game. Yeah, it's one thing, dismissing a side for 329, but then they just never really capitalized in that first innings. Just couldn't get any partnerships going throughout this test match. There was absolutely no flow to the innings. But credit to India, they didn't allow it. They kept the
yeah.
pressure on both end, and it was just too much for England to keep out in the end.
Yeah, it's amazing you bring up these points because Michael Vaughan had mentioned about this whole rotation policy. He's not a fan of it. He finds it, he's staggered by it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I think in hindsight, maybe what England should do is that they need to be a bit more flexible, because if they had at least, you see, Archer, I understand not playing, he was injured, and then fine, Butler had to, whatever reason, go home. But then maybe it's two changes. I mean, they could have let, but then maybe I think they were saving Anderson for the pink ball test because they probably feel that pitch will do a lot, because at nighttime the pink ball generally does do something. But then, do you think that the one for Ahmedabad, do you think that pitch will be similar to the second test match pitch or a lot better?
Okay, I just want to add one thing there as well. I mean,
Sure.
you picked Broad over Anderson, and I think Broad was absolutely ineffective in this test match. Obviously there was a drop chance, and England's fielding was not the best in this test match as well.
Mm.
I think their fielding was quite poor in crucial moments, because if you look at that drop of Ashwin, and then, I mean, look at what Ashwin went and scored. I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing all-round effort from Ashwin. And we show him as a batter as well, scoring those big runs when it really mattered. And this was absolutely this was a it sort of was like a breakthrough performance for Ashwin. It repaid. It gave back people, the doubters, something to think about in terms of him as a batter, because people were not really confident in terms of his of his batting ability. But he proved in this test match, scoring that century, which I thought was amazing, and I thought England would have been kicking themselves as well by not cleaning up the tail there, and the tail wagged so badly that they were completely annihilated. And by the time they got to that fourth test, fourth innings of the match, it was all doom and gloom, and I couldn't see them. I couldn't see any way back for them in that test match. So yeah, this rotation policy is very, very puzzling for me. Butler, I mean, taking anything away from Folks, the wicketkeeper, I thought he had a good game behind the stumps with the gloves. But I mean, Butler has I mean, as a player, I mean, Butler has so much more to offer. He's an X-factor player for England at number 7, and he was missed. And Dom Best, the offsman as well. I thought he bowled quite well in that first test. I was surprised that they dropped him, and I thought he would have done well on this wicket with so much of turn. And he would have been scratching his head in that dressing room as to why he didn't get a game, because Moeen Ali was spinning the ball so prodigiously. Apologies, Dom Best would have really got a lot of punch from this wicket. So, yeah, really, really pushing decisions from England. And this ultimately, in a way, cost them their test match because ultimately they didn't play their best side on the park. And that's what cost them in the end.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't know if it's easy in theory or it's just us just talking. But I think if you look at that pitch, right, and if you look at the fact that England won the first Test match, maybe they could have just said rather just taking their time on that pitch. But I know it's not easy because the ball is pitching. But if they batted it, even if they batted 2.5 runs and over, they could still make some decent runs. If you time that by 90, that's 190. If you do that again for at least a couple, they may have gone to close to India's score. And then it's all about trying to suck up some time because if you can suck up some time on that pitch, it does help out. I know it's easy in theory, but you just got to have a balance, I guess, because you can't just be block, block, block. You can't just be attack, attack, attack. So you just got to try and keep that balance. Easy in words, but something to think about.
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, I don't really think they had a game plan there because they weren't sure whether to attack or actually go for it. But I think the way was to actually play positive, and I think a player like Butler does that because he comes and plays his natural game. He's not reckless, but he plays his natural game. If the ball is there to hit, and I'm sure there were quite a few bad balls out there, and England were just defending those bad balls, so they weren't really putting pressure on India at any stage of the innings, And the debutant as well bowled extra. I thought he was amazing, with the ball.
Yeah.
So much of support to Ashwin as well, and they practically killed England out in that first innings for a paltry 134, which is never going to be enough. And thereafter, it was a long way back for them in that game. So the entire balance of the side in terms of their batting lineup, I definitely think probably they are going to be a few changes for that third test because. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. I think it might have been my network. Yeah, what were you
That's
saying?
cool. Yeah, getting back to that, to England, I think there's going to be quite a few changes for the third test.
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
a guy like Burns up the order. I think he's
Yeah,
under a bit of pressure to get a big score, and he
yeah.
hasn't
He is
done that in the
burned.
last 4 innings. So I would think a guy like Crawley would
Yeah.
probably come into that test
Mm,
match,
mm.
and Burns would
Yeah.
have to, miss this one out, and then. I'd like to see
Mm.
Jimmy Anderson back in the side, but I think
Yeah,
a
he'll be
team with
back. He'll be
Anderson,
back.
yeah, England team with Anderson is much more strong, and I expect him best to come back because
And
I think
Archer to
Broad,
come back.
sorry,
Yeah.
Moeen Ali is going back home, so
Mm.
that to me is quite puzzling as well because I thought
Yeah.
he had a good. And I mean, why would you want to miss a Test series in India? I mean, it's
I
1-1.
know.
You still in it. I mean, this is a year for English cricket that's going to be so big. I mean, you're
Mm.
playing 4 tests in India, and then you're going to play 2 against New Zealand in June, which is the world number 1 side,
Yeah.
and then you got 5 again against India in the summer,
Yeah.
and then the big
Yeah.
one at the end of the year, which is the Ashes, in Australia.
Yeah,
So that's going to be
that would be interesting how they use up their bowlers there because if they do what they do against Australia to India, I won't be surprised if Australia beat England. But that's a conversation for another time. I want to just get to your preview for this third Test match. I mean, what's your thoughts going to be on the pitch? I mean, the pitch for the third Test will be probably a lot more balanced, if I could put it that way, compared to this pitch. This pitch was mainly for the bowlers, but I thought if you applied yourself, you could still make runs on it. The Indian batsmen showed it. So I think if England can take any positive, that the third Test match pitch will probably be it'll be less, it'll be a lot more favorable in the sense that it's the pink ball. They both played pink ball Test matches, and yeah, it'd be fun to see what the ping ball does at night, especially in India.
Well, I think England would be happy if there's a bit of grass left on that pitch on the third test. But having said that, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be quite a. I
Well,
think there's going to be
yeah,
quite a bit of. I think there will be quite a bit of turn there because obviously
yeah.
they want to prepare a pitch to suit the likes of Ashwin and
Hmm.
Agza, and
Hmm.
we're not sure which other player is going to play, but I probably think they would probably go with an unchanged. Probably make one change. I would think Bumrah in for Siraj, probably. I know Mohammed. I probably yeah. I would think that. I would think that would be the only change for India because it would be hasty to make any sort of changes at this moment in time, and you don't want to follow the England suit where you're having this rotation policy. In the middle of such a huge series, there's so much at stake here. I mean, the Test Championship is at stake. Surely there's something to play for, and yeah, really, really puzzling for me to think that an international side would do something like that at this point. But yeah, I would say that probably no more than one change for India. Bumrah coming in, yeah, and I'd like to see a more balanced pitch. I wouldn't say I wouldn't want the curator to prepare a road like what we saw in that first test where it was absolutely flat for the first 2 days. You don't want to see something like that. You want to see a balanced
Yeah.
wicket where there's something in it for the bowlers, and batsmen can obviously, if they apply themselves, they there's runs to be scored. But yeah, there are some issues with England at the moment in terms of their batting lineup. They got to get that right, and I think their application has got to improve quite considerably against spin as well, because I think they showed some frailties in that second test with the turning ball. So they've got to
Hmm.
work on that as well. They got to find a game plan on how to counter Ashwin and how to counter Agza and how to counter whichever spinner that India plays in that game. Uh, so yeah, that's what I think they obviously have to do, and the toss again is going to be crucial.
Hmm.
Whoever wins
Hmm.
that will probably bat first, and it's going. The team that actually loses the toss is obviously going to be playing catch up. So England or India, better hope it's not going to be them, because yeah, it's going to be difficult to bat last on these wickets, and we've seen the deterioration in the first two tests. So you kind of expect the same thing to happen in the third and fourth test as well. But ping ball, very interesting. I hope we see
Hmm.
some zip around in the night, which we would obviously see. So that would be a challenge on its own. And I don't know India's record with the ping ball, how good that is. But
I
yeah, I
think
mean,
it's
it's
1-1.
sort of
I think it's 1-1 because they would beat one in Bangladesh. They beat Bangladesh in India, and then they lost to Australia in Adelaide. So they have a 1-0 record. So it's a bit interesting. I think England
yeah, I
have a
mean, but
similar
look,
record. Yeah.
I think so. But the ping ball is something that's quite new to
Hmm. Hmm.
international
Hmm.
teams. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
this. I don't think you're going to get a 500 plus
No,
score with a ping
unless
ball. You're definitely not going to get that.
unless
But
the
what
pitch
a ping ball
is
actually
really,
does,
yeah.
I think what a
Hmm.
ping ball actually does, it actually brings the opponents actually a little bit closer together in terms of
Hmm.
competition as well. Because there's always going to be something in it for the bowlers at night. So yeah, that'll be a very interesting test match. So yeah, let's see what happens. But to me, this would be a really big boost for India as well now. And if this pitch is anything to go by, and they prepare a similar sort of pitch, I think England have their work cut out for this third test match. Big time.
I highly doubt it because from what I've heard from that Harsha Bogle, he's described the pitch as something that'll actually have a bit of bounce, a bit of turn. So it seems like a much balanced pitch. So I'm not too worried about how it's going to play. I forgot to ask you about your thoughts of the man of the match. I thought that it should have been a joint man of the match, Rohit Sharma and Ashwin. Or were you happy with just Ashwin getting it?
On the balance of play, if you talk about it, and Ashwin contributed with both bat and ball. So, in fairness, you would say, he deserved that man of the match award. But having said that, that innings Rohit played in the first innings was absolutely invaluable to this match, because I mean that set
Hmm.
up. It was a master class on day one, on a very,
Yeah.
very difficult wicket, a very difficult wicket. You always had a ball. As I say, there was just one ball that could get you out on that wicket. There was so much happening on day one, and if there was ever a time for a joint man of the match award, I think this test would probably be in that case, because those were two gigantic performances in this test match that actually swung the momentum India's favor. So yeah. Having said that, I don't have any issues with Ashwin being the man of the match, but you could have shared the award either way as well, because Rohit's innings was a blockbuster stuff.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna predict third test India to win, but they're gonna continue their momentum. You?
I think India would probably be favourites for that test as well. They look a little bit more settled than England at the moment. England did look settled in their first test, but after making all these silly changes and all, they just really disrupted the side. So they're trying to find their best team at the moment again. And I just feel a player like Butler, if he's not there, it really, really opens an end for
Yeah.
England.
It
It
upsets
leaves
the
them a little bit
balance.
more
Yeah.
vulnerable. Yeah, it upsets
Yeah.
the balance really big time. So, uh, yeah, India definitely favourites for that test match.
Okay. All I gotta do say is thanks so much for your time, and we shall catch up soon.
Yeah, cheers, sir. Thanks for having me. Chat to you soon.